Once upon a time, in a village called Awala, there lived a man named Mr. Oka and his wife Mrs. Oka. They had a son. Their son's name was Adim. Mr. and Mrs. Oka trained their child well. They taught Adim good manners and how to make the right choices. But sometimes, children do not always follow what they had been taught. When Adim turned 21 years old, he became close to a girl named Ure. Ure was the daughter of a respected clergyman in the community. Adim and Ure spent a lot of time together. They liked each other very much. However, something unexpected happened. Ure became pregnant. Ure was very worried. She told Adim about the pregnancy. Adim was as confused as Ure. They did not know what to do. While they were still thinking about what to do, Ure's parents found out that she was pregnant. They were very surprised and upset. They asked Ure many questions to find out who the father of the baby was. At first, Ure did not want to tell them, but after much hesitation and persuasion, she revealed that it was Adim who got her pregnant. Ure's parents were very disappointed and angry. They decided to take Ure to Adam's family. When they arrived at Adam's house, they told Mr. and Mrs. Oka why they had come. Mr. and Mrs. Oka were very disappointed in their son. They could not believe what they had heard and what their son had done. They apologized to Ure's parents and begged for their forgiveness. But Ure's parents were very angry. They said that they could not bear the shame their daughter had caused them. So they decided to leave Ure with Adam's family until she gave birth to the baby. Ure's parents left her at Adam's house and went back to their own home. Mr. Oka was very much angry with Adam. He scolded him harshly and told him how disappointed he was with him. They warned Adam and Ure never to be seen together again until the baby was born. From that day, Ure stayed with Adam's family. Adam and Ure were both very sad and worried about what would happen next. They knew they had made a mistake, but they did not know how to fix it. They felt sorry for disappointing their parents and causing them so much pain. The days went slowly. Ure's belly grew bigger and bigger as the baby grew into her. Mr. and Mrs. Oka did their best to take care of her. They made sure she had enough food to eat and a safe place to sleep. They treated her kindly, even though they were very disappointed in Adam. Adam tried to help Ure whenever he could. He wanted to make things right, but he did not know how. He wished he could go back in time and make better choices, but he knew that was not possible. All he could do now was to try and be responsible and help Ure as much as he could. One evening, as Ure was sitting outside, Mrs. Oka came to talk to her. "Ure, I know this is very difficult for you," she said gently, "but we are here for you. You made a mistake, but that does not mean your life is ruined. You can still have a good future." Ure nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Ma," she said softly. "I am very sorry for causing so much trouble. I promise to do my best to make things right." Mrs. Oka smiled kindly. "We believe in you, Ure. We believe you can make things right. Just take one day at a time. And remember, we are here for you." As the days turned into weeks, Ure began to feel a little better. She still worried about the future, but she felt grateful for the support she was getting from Adam's family. She knew she had a lot to learn and a long way to go, but she was determined to do her best for her baby and herself. One evening, Adim and Ure were sitting together, talking about the future. What will happen to us, Adim? Ure asked. What will happen to our baby? Adim took a deep breath. I don't know, Ure, he said honestly, but I promise you this. I will do everything I can to take care of you and our baby. I will work hard and make sure we have a good life. I know I made a mistake, but I want to make it right. Ure looked at him, hope shining in her eyes. Thank you, Adim, she said. I believe in you. We can do this together. As the months passed, Ure's baby grew inside her. Adim and Ure continued to receive support from Adim's parents. They faced many challenges, but they also learned important lessons about responsibility, forgiveness, and love. Days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Ure finally gave birth to a baby girl, a pretty baby girl. Mr. and Mrs. Oka were very happy. They thanked God for granting Ure a safe delivery because they were initially scared she might lose her life. They named the child Ebere. Ebere became Mr. and Mrs. Oka's beloved. They showered her with so much love and also supported Ure in every possible way they could. Adim would always secretly admire Ebere. She was so delighted to behold. He loved watching her tiny hands and feet and hearing her little giggles. Ebere brought so much joy to everyone around her. Ure's parents were notified that she had given birth. They were happy to hear the news but decided to wait until the baby was 9 months old before they visited. During this time, Mr. and Mrs. Oka took care of Ebere as if she was their own daughter. They made sure Ure had everything she needed to take care of the baby. They wanted her to feel supported and loved, even though the situation was difficult. When Ebere was 9 months old, Ure's parents finally came to visit. They were happy to see their daughter and their new grandchild, but they also had a plan. They wanted to take Ure back home so she could continue her education. Ure's father spoke to Mr. and Mrs. Oka about their decision. Please, you people can take it up from here, Ure's father said. We are taking Ure so she can continue her education. Mr. and Mrs. Oka were very sad to hear this. They had grown very fond of Ure and Ebere. They tried to persuade Ure's parents to let Ure stay, but they did not reconsider. Ure's parents were firm in their decision. They believed it was best for Ure to continue her education and build a future for herself and her child. Despite much pleading from the Okas, Ure's parents eventually took Ure home, leaving the child behind. Adim was very sad that the baby was separated from her mother. He knew it would be hard for Ebere to grow up without her mother around. Even his parents were highly disappointed with what Ure's parents did, but they just let everything slide, hoping it was for the best. Mr. and Mrs. Oka continued to take care of Ebere with all their love. They made sure she had everything she needed and more. They wanted to give her a happy and safe home. Adim also did his best to help. He played with Ebere, fed her, and watched over her. He loved her very much and wanted her to feel safe and loved. As the days went by, Ebere grew into a happy and healthy baby. She brought joy to everyone around her. Even though Ure was not there, the Okas did their best to make Ebere feel loved and cared for. They knew they had to be strong for her and give her the best life they could. Adim often thought about Ure. He wondered how she was doing and if she missed Ebere as much as they all missed her. He hoped she was doing well in her studies and that she would come back to see Ebere one day. Mr. and Mrs. Oka continued to pray for Ure and Ebere. They hoped that one day things would work out for the best. They believed that with love and care, they could overcome any challenges that came their way. Mr. Oka thought it was necessary for Adam to also further his education. He believed education was the key to a successful future. So Adam went back to school while his parents helped him take care of Ebere. Years passed and Adam finished university. He got a good job and was doing well for himself. Ebere was already 10 years old by then. She was growing up to be a bright and cheerful girl, thanks to the love and care of Mr. and Mrs. Oka. One evening, Adam sat down with his parents and shared his thoughts. Mama, Papa, I think it's time for me to get married, he said with a hopeful smile. Mr. and Mrs. Oka exchanged a pleased look. They were happy that Adam was ready to settle down. That's wonderful, son, Mr. Oka said. Have you thought about who you want to marry? Adam nodded. Yes, I have. I can't think of anyone else worthy of being my wife except for Ure. His parents gave their approval with a warm smile. They remembered Ure and how much she meant to Adam. They were glad he still had feelings for her and wanted to reunite with her. After Adam had put some things in place and planned things out, he decided to visit Ure's parents' house. He wanted to ask for their blessing and bring Ure back into his life. He was filled with hope and excitement. When he arrived at Ure's parents' house, they were surprised to see him. They welcomed him in, and after some pleasantries, Adam tabled the reasons for his visit. Sir, Ma, I have come to ask for Ure's hand in marriage, Adam said, his voice full of determination. Ure's father looked at him with a serious expression. Adam, I appreciate your intentions, but I must tell you something, he began. Adam felt a knot form in his stomach. He was not prepared for what he was about to hear. Ure got married a year ago, Ure's father revealed. She and her husband live abroad now. Adam was stunned. His heart sank and he felt a wave of disappointment wash over him. He felt like challenging Ure's father because he had warned him from ever contacting Ure. He even went as far as blocking every avenue to reach her. I hope you are happy now, as you have forever separated a child from her mother, Adam said, his voice filled with pain. Hope God has given you an award. Sir, you are very wicked. With that, Adam stood up and left. He was heartbroken and angry. He couldn't believe that Ure's parents had kept him away from her and their child. When Adam got back to his parents' house, he told them everything. Mr. and Mrs. Oka were equally shocked and saddened by the news. They tried to comfort Adam, but he was too upset to listen. Please, I need to pull myself together, Adam said, trying to hold back his tears. I will come around soonest. He then packed his things and returned to his base, leaving his parents worried about his state of mind. Mr. and Mrs. Oka hugged Ebere tightly, promising themselves that they would take even better care of her. They knew she was the key to keeping their family strong and united during this difficult time. As Adam drove back to his base, he felt a mix of emotions. He was angry, hurt, and disappointed. But deep down, he knew he had to stay strong for Ebere. He decided to focus on his work and find a way to move forward, even though it seemed difficult at the moment. Ebere was feeling sad. She loved her grandparents very much, but she had missed her dad. Even though she didn't grow up with him around, she always heard wonderful stories about him from her grandparents. They showed her pictures of Adam, and Ebere dreamed of spending time with him and getting to know him more. However, Adam was too upset and busy with his emotions to give Ebere the attention she longed for. He was still dealing with the pain of finding out that Ure had married someone else. He didn't realize how much Ebere wanted to bond with him. One day, Mrs. Oka noticed that Ebere looked sad. She saw the change in her facial expressions and decided to talk to her. She sat Ebere down and gently asked, "What is wrong, my dear?" Ebere looked up at her grandmother with teary eyes. "Grandma, why doesn't Daddy spend time with me? Doesn't he love me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Mrs. Suka felt a pang in her heart. She pulled Ebere into a warm hug and said, "Oh, sweetie, your daddy loves you very much. He's just going through a tough time right now, but I promise he will come around soon." Ebere wiped her tears and looked up at her grandma. "Will I ever see my mom again?" she asked innocently. Mrs. Suka comforted her gently, stroking her hair. "All will be well, my child. Your mom loves you too, and we'll find a way to make things better." After a few weeks, Mrs. Oka decided to take Ebere to visit her other grandparents, Ure's parents. She thought it might help Ebere feel better and also give Ure's parents a chance to see their granddaughter. When they arrived, Ure's parents were shocked and excited to see how grown Ebere was. Floods of emotions and guilt filled their hearts. "She looks so much like Ure," Ure's mother said with tears in her eyes. They welcomed Ebere with open arms, hugging her and playing with her. They showered her with love and affection, making up for lost time. When it was time to leave, Ure's parents gave Ebere some gifts and promised to keep in touch with her. "We will try to make your mom come visit you, okay?" they said with warm smiles. "We are so sorry for distancing ourselves." They hugged her one last time before she left. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Oka. This is so thoughtful of you," they said gratefully. Mrs. Oka smiled and nodded. "Ebere deserves to know her family," she said. With that, Ebere and her grandmother returned home. Ebere felt so much happier after the visit. She knew she had more people who loved her and that her family cared about her deeply. Back at home, Mrs. Oka continued to support Ebere, reminding her that things would get better with time. She also hoped that Adam would soon realize how much his daughter needed him and start to spend more time with her. Ebere held onto the memories of her visit to her maternal grandparents. She cherished the gifts they gave her and looked forward to the day she would see her mom again. With her grandmother's comforting words and her family's love, she felt hopeful about the future. Ebere was very excited about her visit to her maternal grandparents' house. For weeks, her face had been radiating with smiles. She couldn't stop talking about the warm welcome she received and the gifts they had given her. Her grandparents' love had filled a void in her heart, and she felt happier than she had in a long time. Mrs. Oka noticed the change in Ebere's mood and was glad that the visit had such a positive impact. She knew that family was important and that Ebere needed all the love and support she could get. One sunny afternoon, as Ebere was playing in a garden, Mrs. Oka decided it was time to talk to Adam. She wanted him to understand how much Ebere needed him and how much she had longed to spend time with her father. "Adam," she called gently as she approached him in the living room. "Can we talk for a moment?" Adam looked up from his book and nodded. "Of course, Mama. What's on your mind?" Mrs. Oka sat down beside him and took his hand. "It's about Ebere," she began. "She's been so happy since our visit to Ure's parents, but there's something missing in her life, and that's you." Adam sighed, feeling the weight of his mother's words. "I know, Mama. I've been caught up in my own feelings that I haven't been there for her like I should." Mrs. Oka squeezed his hand. "She needs you, Adam. She needs to know that her father loves her and cares about her. You need to make an effort to spend time with her and build a relationship." Adam nodded slowly, realizing the truth in his mother's words. "You are right, Mama. I've been selfish and it's time I changed that. Later that evening, Adam decided to make the first step. He found Ebere in her room, playing with the toys her grandparents had given her. He knocked softly on the door and entered. "Hi, Ebere," he said with a warm smile. Ebere looked up, her eyes brightening. "Hi, Daddy," she exclaimed. Adam sat down beside her. "I was thinking, would you like to spend some time together tomorrow? Maybe we could go to the park or have a picnic." Ebere's face lit up with excitement. "Really? I would love that, Daddy." Adam felt a wave of guilt for not doing this sooner, but also a sense of relief that he was finally making things right. "Great, it's a date then." The next day, Adam and Ebere set out for their picnic. They packed a basket with sandwiches, fruits, and juice and headed to the park. Ebere was thrilled to be spending the day with her father. At the park, they spread out a blanket and sat down on it to eat. As they enjoyed their meal, they talked about all sorts of things. Ebere told Adam about her school, her friends, and her dreams for the future. Adam realized how much he had missed out on and vowed never to let his emotions get in the way of being there for his daughter again. As the sun began to set, they packed up their things and headed home. Ebere held his father's hand tightly, feeling happy and content. "Thank you, Daddy. This was the best day ever," she said, her eyes shining with joy. Adam smiled and kissed her forehead. "Thank you, Ebere. You made my day too." When they got home, Mrs. Oka saw the bond that had formed between them and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She knew that this was just the beginning of a beautiful relationship between father and daughter. In the following weeks, Adam continued to spend quality time with Ebere. They went on more outings, playing games, and shared stories. Adam realized that being a good father meant being present and showing love, and he was determined to be the best father he could be. Ebere was happier than ever. She felt loved and cherished, not only by her grandparents, but by her father as well. She knew that no matter what, her family would always be there for her. As time went on, Adam's parents continued to support and guide him. They were proud of the changes he was making and the effort he was putting into being a good father. They knew that Ebere would grow up surrounded by love and support, and that was all they ever wanted for her. Months passed, and one day, as Adam was returning from work, he met a pretty lady walking along the road. Her beauty captivated him, and he decided to pull over to get her attention. At first, the lady didn't want to stop, but Adam was persistent. "Pretty lady, good evening. Please, I don't bite. I just want to give you a ride to your destination," he said charmingly. "No, thank you. I don't ride with strangers," the lady replied. But Adam wasn't ready to take no for an answer. He kept pushing, trying to convince her. Eventually, the lady agreed to join him in the car. As they drove, they got talking, and Adam found out her name was Joy. When they reached Joy's destination, before she got out of the car, they exchanged phone numbers. "I'll try and keep in touch," Adam told her with a smile. Joy nodded her head, and as time goes on, they became so close and started seeing each other. They became fond of each other, and Adam was soon convinced that Joy would make a wonderful wife. One day, Adam decided to travel to his parents' house to inform them about the new development in his life. On his arrival, after giving Ebere the gifts he had brought for her and exchanging pleasantries, Adam went straight to the reason for his visit. "Papa, Mama, since I came back to make Uri my wife officially and what followed, I think I can't continue to wait. I can't continue like this. Uri is married, and I think it's time I also settle down," he told his parents. "My son, you have tried. It's not your fault that you didn't marry Uri. So you are free to get married so Ebere can have a proper family and younger siblings, his mother, Mrs. Oka, said. His father supported his wife, agreeing that Adam should move on. They were happy that their son was finally taking this step. They wished him well and prayed for him. Adam spent some quality time with Ebere before returning to the city. Ebere was always happy to see her father, and they played and talked about many things. Adam made sure to reassure her that no matter what, she would always be his special little daughter. When Adam returned, he met with Joy and shared his plans for their future. Joy was delighted and ready to embark on this new journey with him. They decided to get to know each other's families better and plan their life together. The next few weeks were busy but filled with joy. Adam introduced Joy to his parents, who welcomed her warmly. They appreciated her kind nature and saw how happy she made their son. Ebere also liked Joy and enjoyed spending time with her. Joy's family also got to meet Adam and were pleased with him. They could see that he was a responsible and caring man who would take good care of their daughter. As time went on, Adam and Joy's bond grew stronger. They planned their wedding with the support and blessings of both families. The wedding day finally arrived, and it was a beautiful and joyous occasion. Friends and families gathered to celebrate Adam and Joy's union. Ebere was the happiest of all, feeling the love and warmth around her. She was thrilled to have a new mother in her life. Adam and Joy's life together began on a happy note. They worked together to create a loving home for Ebere, who flourished under their care. Ebere felt loved and cherished, knowing that her family was complete. Adam never forgot the importance of being there for his daughter. He continued to spend quality time with her, making sure she knew she was special and loved. Joy too embraced her role as a mother and showed Ebere the same love and care. With time, Adam and Joy welcomed more children into their family, Oluchi and Uzamaka. Ebere was excited to have younger siblings and helped take care of them. The house was filled with laughter and love. Despite the challenges they had faced, Adam and his family found joy and contentment in their lives. They supported each other through thick and thin, always putting family first. As the years passed, Ebere grew into a kind and compassionate young woman. She excelled in her studies and pursued her dreams with the encouragement of her family. She knew that no matter what challenges she faced, she could always rely on the love and support of her parents, grandparents, and siblings. Adam and Joy's love for each other remained strong, and they continued to build a happy and fulfilling life together. They were grateful for the journey that had brought them to the point and looked forward to many more years of love and happiness. Adam had been working hard at his job for many years. One day, he received exciting news. He had been promoted. He was so happy and couldn't wait to share the good news with his family. As soon as he got home, he gathered everyone. I have a great news, Adam announced with a big smile. What is it, Adam? I got promoted at work. This means a better salary and more opportunities for our family, Adam said proudly. Everyone congratulated him and celebrated the wonderful news. Ebere was especially happy for her father and gave him a big hug. Adam thought it was the perfect time to make some improvements for his family, starting with Ebere's education. He believed she deserved the best, so he decided to enroll her in a more expensive school with better facilities. However, when Adam shared his plan with Joy, she wasn't as happy as he expected. Adam, don't you think that it's a waste of money? Joy said, trying to hide her jealousy. Ebere is doing fine where she is. Why spend so much on just one child? Adam was surprised by Joy's reaction. But Joy, it's for Ebere's future. She deserves the best education we can afford. He insisted. Joy felt jealous because she thought Ebere would get all the benefits while her own daughters Oluchi and Uzamaka were still young and wouldn't get the same attention. But Adam didn't notice her jealousy and went ahead with his plan. Ebere was excited about her new school. She loved learning and was eager to make new friends. But that was when the real trouble started for her. Joy began to treat Ebere unfairly. She assigned Ebere almost all the house chores every morning before school. Since Adam left home very early for work, he wasn't aware of what was happening. Ebere had to wake up very early to finish the chores, but it was too much for her. She often couldn't get to school on time, and her grades started to suffer. Ebere tried her best, but the workload at home was too heavy. When she got her report card, she was heartbroken. Her grades were low, and she knew she could have done better if she had more time to study. She cried when she saw her results. Adam was very disappointed when he saw Ebere's grades. Ebere, you've disappointed me. What kind of grades are these? Please don't make me believe I'm wasting my money, he shouted angrily. Ebere felt terrible. She wanted to explain, but didn't know how to tell her father about the chores without causing more troubles. Meanwhile, Joy was secretly happy because things were going as she wanted. Ebere tried to hide her sadness, but it was too hard. She loved her father and didn't want him to be upset with her. She decided to work even harder, hoping to balance both her chores and her schoolwork. The unfair treatment continued, and Ebere struggled. She woke up early every morning to finish the chores Joy assigned her. Sometimes she was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open in class, but she didn't give up. She knew she had to find a way to improve her grades and make her father proud again. Despite her efforts, Ebere felt lonely and overwhelmed. She wished she could talk to her father, but she didn't want to cause any problem between him and Joy. She hoped that one day things would get better and she could focus on her studies without all the extra chores. As time passed, Ebere's situation at home became worse. Oluchi and Amaka, her younger stepsisters, started treating her like a maid. Every day, Ebere had to serve them, do all the house chores, and listen to their constant ridicule. Joy would always make fun of her in front of the girls, and they would laugh at Ebere until she felt completely humiliated. Amaka, the rudest among them, would often abuse Ebere verbally. She would purposely make a mess just to give Ebere more work to do. Despite being the youngest child, Amaka was always full of herself and enjoyed making Ebere's life difficult. Ebere felt like she was a maid in her own father's house. Every time she tried to talk to her father, he would dismiss her, saying, Ebere, please, can't that wait? I'm busy. She would walk away frustrated and sad, feeling like she had no one to turn to. One Sunday, Adim noticed that his daughter was losing weight. She looked thin and unhealthy, and it gave him great concern. He decided to talk to Joy about it. Joy, why is Ebere looking so thin and unhealthy these days? Is she sick or something? Is there anything you're not telling me? He inquired. Joy responded sarcastically. Ebere that has started to flirt around. Why wouldn't she be unhealthy? Adam was disappointed in her response and fired back. Please stop that trash. Ebere is too decent for that. Adam smelled something fishy and decided to ask Ebere himself. However, Joy had already signaled Ebere, warning her that if she revealed anything, she would be in big trouble. When her father asked, Ebere lied. I'm struggling to make good grades. So maybe that's why. Ebere wasn't happy that she couldn't express herself to her father now that she had the chance. She just cried and went into her room, feeling more hopeless than ever. The unfair treatment continued, and Ebere's situation didn't improve. She tried to keep up with her schoolwork and chores, but it was too much for her. She felt trapped and alone, with no one to turn to. Despite everything, Ebere didn't give up. She knew she had to find a way to improve her grades and make her father proud again. But with Joy and her stepsisters making her life so difficult, it seemed like an impossible task. Ebere's health continued to decline, and she struggled to keep up with her schoolwork. She knew she needed help, but she didn't know how to get it. Every day was a battle. She tried to stay strong and hopeful. One evening, as she was finishing her chores, Ebere decided she couldn't keep living like this. She needed to find a way to talk to her father without Joy interfering. She had to tell him what was really going on, no matter the consequences. That evening, Ebere waited anxiously for her father to return home. Unknown to her, Adam had called Joy earlier, informing her that he wouldn't be coming home that night due to a crucial meeting that might last until late. Ebere waited in vain, staring out the window, hoping to see her father's car pull up. At about 11:30 p.m., Ebere was still up looking out. Oh, what might have kept him? She asked aloud. Though no one was around to hear, she became frustrated and decided to go to bed, feeling a sense of unease. The next morning, Ebere received news that shocked her to her core. Joy had received a call from an unknown number. Please, madam, on to St. John's Clinic and identify if this corpse is someone you know, the caller said before hanging up. Joy didn't raise any alarm. She rushed out of the house, looking unkempt and worried. Ebere was shocked and puzzled by her stepmother's sudden departure. She wondered what could have made Joy leave so hastily. About an hour later, Joy returned home with a grave expression on her face. She broke the devastating news. Adam was dead. He had been deposited in the morgue. Based on information she received, Adam had been driving home early that morning after the late night meeting. He felt drowsy and didn't notice a reckless truck driver approaching from the opposite direction. They collided and the damage was terrible. Adam hit his head against the dashboard and that was it. Ebere cried bitterly. God, why now? Please take me also. I can't bear this pain alone, she wailed. Her grandparents tried to comfort her. Despite their own immense grief, they understood how important Adam was in Ebere's life and the immense void his death would leave. Ebere's world crumbled around her. The one person who had always been there for her, who loved her unconditionally, was gone. She felt lost and alone, despite the comforting presence of her grandparents. Joy, meanwhile, seemed unfazed by the tragedy. She didn't show any signs of grief or sorrow, which puzzled and hurt Ebere even more. Ebere's heart ached with the pain of losing her father and the coldness she felt from her stepmother. Days turned into weeks, and the household struggled to cope with the loss. Ebere's grandparents did their best to provide her with love and support, but the absence of her father was a wound that seemed impossible to heal. Ebere's school performance suffered even more as she grappled with her grief. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, and the house chores that Joy imposed on her didn't help. She struggled to find a way to move forward without her father. One night, as Ebere lay in bed, tears streaming down her face, she whispered to herself, I have to be strong. Daddy wouldn't want me to give up. I have to make him proud. The burial arrangements were made, and Adam's parents ensured he was given a befitting burial. The ceremony was filled with tears and sorrow as family and friends gathered to say their final goodbyes. Ebere was inconsolable, feeling the immense loss of her father deeply. She clung to her grandparents for support, but the pain of losing her father was overwhelming. After the burial, life seemed to return to normal for Joy and her children, Oluchi and Amaka. However, for Ebere, things only got worse. Adam had handed over his assets to Joy, trusting that she would share them among the girls if anything went wrong. This meant Joy was now in charge, and she used her newfound power to make Ebere's life miserable. Joy successfully cut off Adam's parents, isolating Ebere even further. She took pleasure in humiliating Ebere and assigning her the most tedious chores. On one of these days, Mr. Oka visited the house. He looked tired and worried. Joy, my wife is terribly sick and needs medication. Please, I am pleading with you for some financial assistance. Mr. Oka asked humbly. Joy looked at him coldly. I'm sorry, Mr. Oka, but I can't help you, she replied without a hint of compassion. Without proper care, Mrs. Oka's condition worsened, and she passed away. Ebere cried like never before. She had lost the one person who treated her like a biological mother. Her heart ached with a deep sadness, but she found some consolation in her grandfather's presence. However, Mr. Oka couldn't stand the loss of his wife, and he joined her in death the following month. Ebere felt utterly hopeless. It's finally finished, she exclaimed, feeling as though her entire world had collapsed. Joy conducted the burials respectively, but after that, she made Ebere her project of wickedness. Ebere had finished secondary school, but Joy denied her the opportunity to go to the university. Ebere decided to live her life as it came, enduring the daily torment from Joy. As time passed, Joy started getting irritated by Ebere's presence and began looking for ways to dispose her of. One day, a poor-looking man came to her house in search of Amaka. Joy was curious why such a man would be looking for her precious daughter. The man identified himself as Charles. I came to seek Amaka's hand in marriage, he explained. Ha! I have suffered. Me, Amaka, a beggar, coming for my hand in marriage. God will punish you, Amaka shouted at the man. But as all this drama unfolded, Joy had other plans popping into her head. She calmed Amaka down and then politely told the man, Amaka is taken, but I have someone else for you. My first daughter, Ebere, is available. Charles accepted the offer and thanked Joy, promising to bring his kinsmen for the marriage rites. Ebere was shocked and heartbroken when she learned about Joy's plan. She couldn't believe that her stepmother was willing to marry her off to a man she barely knew just to get rid of her. As the days passed, Ebere's despair grew. She felt trapped and helpless, unable to escape Joy's cruelty. The thought of being forced into a marriage with a stranger filled her with dread. She longed for her father's presence and guidance, wishing he were there to protect her. Despite the overwhelming sadness, Ebere tried to stay strong. She knew she had to find a way to survive and make a better life for herself, no matter the obstacle. With each passing day, she held onto the hope that someday she would find a way to break free from Joy's control and live the life she deserved. A month later, Charles, the poor-looking man, returned with his family to do the needful. When they arrived, Charles spoke to Joy, explaining that he didn't have enough money to pay for everything. I can only pay the dowry now. I promise to pay the rest little by little as I earn more money, he said earnestly. Please don't worry. The dowry is enough. Leave the rest, Joy assured him with a smile. Charles was surprised by Joy's willingness to marry off her daughter so easily. Let it not be that she is blind or lame, he thought to himself, puzzled by her eagerness. Inside the house, Ebere was crying. She wasn't given any special clothes to wear for the occasion, just her normal everyday attire. Despite her tears, she had made up her mind to go with a stranger rather than stay with a family that didn't want her to be happy. I would rather die with a stranger than die in these people's hands, she whispered to herself. The bride, your husband's people want you, Amaka said mockingly as she entered the room. Ebere wiped her tears and stepped out to meet Charles and his family. As soon as Charles saw her, he was immediately drawn to her. Thank God, she is such an angel, even without makeup, he whispered to himself, too quietly for anyone else to hear. After all the necessary formalities, Charles took Ebere home. The journey was quiet, with Ebere feeling a mix of relief and fear about what lay ahead. Later that evening, Amaka and Oluchi approaching their mother with questions. Mom, why did you give Ebere away so cheaply? Oluchi asked. I want her to go and suffer with that frustrated, stinking man. Hunger will certainly kill them, Joy replied, laughing loudly. Amaka and Oluchi joined in the laughter. Ha, mommy, you are a genius, Oluchi praised her mother. But mommy, she was still useful around here. Who will do all the chores now? Amaka asked, making a face. Don't worry, my daughters. I will employ someone to do all that. Let that girl get lost. She is no longer needed here, Joy assured them. They hugged their mother and went their separate ways, feeling satisfied with the outcome. Joy felt a sense of fulfillment. Finally, my daughters will have all their father's wealth, she said to herself, feeling accomplished. Ebere, now in her new home, faced an uncertain future. Despite the challenges ahead, she held on to a glimmer of hope that life with Charles might be better than what she had endured with Joy and her stepsisters. Ebere and Charles arrived at Charles's house in a slum area. The first week, they used the time to get to know each other better. Charles shared that he was doing menial jobs like pushing wheelbarrows to survive. Ebere in turn shared her side of the story. No wonder she was comfortable giving you out so easily. No same mother would do that. She wanted you to get married so you would continue to suffer. Ebere didn't say anything. She just sat there staring at him with tears rolling down her cheeks. She resolved to work hard and help Charles make ends meet. Ebere started with the little money she had, hawking sachet water. After some time, she saved up enough money to start more lucrative business, selling cooked food, which she carried around to sell. Charles was proud of the woman he had married and never ceased to appreciate her sacrifices. One day, while Ebere was selling her rice, she bumped into Amaka. Amaka laughed at her scornfully upon sighting her. Chai, poor girl, this new life really suits you, Amaka mocked. Ebere just walked past her and continued her business. After about 2 months, Ebere had saved up some money. She gave it to Charles to start up a business. My husband, please take this 100,000 naira and do a more productive business so we can help ourselves, she said lovingly. Charles was shocked. He hugged her, tears dropping from his eyes. I will never let you down. You deserve everything good. In no time, you will smile again, he said, patting her back. He collected the money, and after 2 days, he informed Ebere that he wanted them to travel to his hometown to buy goods for his new business. After much hesitation, Ebere agreed to go with him. Upon their arrival, she was shocked to find themselves at a very magnificent house. Servants surrounded them, bowing and greeting Charles. Ebere could not understand what was happening. Suddenly, his parents came out, all well dressed. She recognized them as the people who had come to marry her. "My son, welcome back home. You made it." And believe me, she was worth all the stress, Charles' father said. "Come here," his mother said, giving Ebere a tight hug. Charles explained to Ebere his real identity. He was actually a wealthy prince in search of an honest and reliable queen. Ebere couldn't believe her ears. For a second, she felt like she was dreaming. His father commanded the palace costumier to dress them up accordingly, and a great feast was held in their honor. Ebere was overwhelmed with joy. The kindness and strength she had shown during trials had led her to a place of great honor and love. She felt grateful and blessed as she stepped into her new life as a queen, ready to embrace the happiness that awaited her. Back at Joy's house, things had taken a turn for the worse. Due to her mismanagement, she squandered all the money Adam had left behind. Joy now lived at the mercy of her daughter's earnings from dubious activities and the remnant of her past glory. One sunny day, Joy sat at the veranda, lost in thought. Suddenly, she saw magnificent cars driving into the compound. At first, she thought it was her daughters bringing prospective clients, but when the occupants of the car alighted, she could barely recognize anyone there. It was Ebere's voice that gave her away. "Ma'am, thank you so much for releasing this angel to me. She's all I've ever wanted and even more," Charles said to Joy, exchanging pleasantries. Joy stood with her mouth wide open, unable to say anything. Ebere also thanked her for directing her to her destiny helper. As this was going on, Amaka and Oluchi walked in, equally shocked. "Ma'am, I'll be coming back in 1 week to properly marry my wife. So please inform everyone who needs to be informed," Charles said, interrupting their stunned silence. But before they left, Charles handed Joy a whopping sum of 5 million naira as appreciation. "Jesus!" they all shouted when they saw the alert on Joy's phone. Amaka started crying and blaming her mother for giving away her billionaire suitor. "Because of your greed," she cried. "Shut up, you fool. Were you not the one who rejected him first?" Her mother fired back. As promised, Charles returned a week later, and their wedding was the talk of town. For a long time, Ebere got everything she had always wanted in life. She was finally happy, loved, and cherished. Joy and her daughters could only watch and regret their actions as Ebere's life blossomed beautifully. They realized too late that their greed and malice had cost them dearly. The most important lesson in this story is that resilience and kindness in face of adversity can lead to unexpected and transformative rewards. Ebere, despite facing severe mistreatment and hardship, chose to remain compassionate and hardworking. Her perseverance and integrity not only helped her overcome her struggles, but also led her to a life of love and fulfillment. The story teaches us that staying true to our values and persevering through difficult times can ultimately lead us to a better and more rewarding future. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, share, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.